Hello, my name's Michael Conneely and I'm bringing this video to you from the beautiful West of Ireland on a very important theme. I'm predicting that the eclipse of the 14th of December 2020 will raise a big challenge to the stability of Donald Trump's mind and for the well-being of the United States nation. And I'm going to give 7 reasons for this. And I'm making this video now so that we can all prepare for this situation. It's going to happen. 2020 is a year of an exceptional number of eclipses, other divisive violent energies which I'll be listing, and the trouble that will come from the eclipse of the 14th of December with its effect on Donald Trump's mind and mental state will persist into 2021. Indeed, it'll be an enduring landmark. Now, to see the charts for this eclipse of the 14th of December 2020 and for Donald Trump and for the United States, go to the monthly page on my Star Wheel Astrology website. I issue a page of monthly information every month, the ephemeris, the planet positions for every month in both Vedic astrology and Western astrology, and the charts that are significant for that month, for example eclipses. And I'm adding, of course, to that page the chart for Donald Trump and for the United States itself. So the link to that web page is below the YouTube display, and it's also in the blog that is associated with this video, which gives a lot of detail. So I predict that when the 14th of December eclipse strikes, it will massively affect the way Donald Trump will manage his mind and consciousness and the way he will lead the United States nation. I predict, sadly, that in the circumstances that will arise around and following that date, he will revert to being a trickster who will play havoc with individuals and human community for his entertainment at root. I predict that with the effect of the 14th of December eclipse on his chart and his mind, he will become an unreliable person who suffers from mental instability and who will feel he has little to lose in his actions to stay on top. You see, the energies of this 14th of December eclipse are right on top of his unstable Moon Ketu conjunction in his birth chart, Moon South Node conjunction in his birth chart. And this will deepen his period of unbalance in mental health, which has already been assaulted by the factors of the exceptional astrology of 2020 that indeed were building up in 2019 and that I list in the blog and in this video. And this needs to be known, as this factor alone, the effect of the eclipse on his mental stability, will have big and lasting implications for the United States. Remember, I'm showing not only the chart for the eclipse on my website page for December 2020, but also his chart and the United States chart. And this eclipse and his reaction to it will have major challenges for the management of the consciousness of United States citizens. It's already been rocked by factors which I'm going to list below. And I feel all the citizens will have to develop ways of managing their consciousness and their lives to cope with the violent energies which have already started in the United States, manifesting socially. And it will raise major challenges for the management of a social reset that is going on at this time, and I've talked about in earlier blogs and videos, that has been made even bigger as a consequence of the effects of the coronavirus pandemic on the United States and worldwide. It will create a reset, and it's up to us to decide where we stand in the midst of that. How do we want our life to be? How do we want to align to our souls at this time? How do we want to raise our consciousness at this time when major bad things will be happening, a polarization between light and dark? Indeed, the increase in the dark has as its divine consequence the potential to raise our spiritual awareness and consciousness, or to go with the dark and to let our mind run with all this, as indeed Donald Trump's will, especially from what the eclipse of the 14th of December will do to his mind. And also I'd say that his state of mind will have major consequences for the management of the presidential electoral process going on at that time. Now, the next thing to say is, please remember that this is a solar eclipse, and solar eclipses do not have immediate effects as do lunar eclipses. So the effects of this eclipse will spin out. But it is a most powerful eclipse, as are the 5 other eclipses of 2020 in their exceptional number. So do remember that the effects of the most powerful eclipses last for months, even years. And do bear in mind that the eclipses of the 21st of June 2020 and the 14th of December 2020, that this video and blog is about, are in exactly the same position as the eclipses that brought the 9/11 crisis to the United States in 2001. There's a tiny difference in the position of Rahu, the North Node, but not one which will make that eclipse's effects less. Just to get back to my notes, the other thing to bear in mind is that these eclipses and other things which I'll be mentioning essentially will have a social reset effect, for good or ill. The pandemic and the earthquake energy of the eclipses mean that the stresses and wrongs in consumer modernity, the society we live in, are getting too much for the environment, too much for the human being. Yes, some good things are brought along, for example, internet connection across the world. But very many bad things are happening, to the environment, to the way people live, to their jobs, to education processes, to food. And 2020 will have a reset effect. Now, it's up to us to take stock of where we are now in our life in relation to our society. And I'll be talking about that more below. So it is possible for individuals to chart a spiritual course forwards, or they can join in the mass violence that's happening in the United States and will persist probably from the election, or they can embrace their spiritual higher potential and grasp the revolution energies that are offered now in a positive way, positive revolution in the individual life, positive contribution of the individual to social revolution. See, eclipses are like earthquakes. Earthquakes occur when tension builds up in the plates of the Earth's crust. And if they're under the sea, then there's a tsunami as well. And the point is that when the tension gets too much, then an earthquake must and will occur. And this is where the USA is at now, and maybe in a lesser crisis state, the whole of consumer modernity, the modern culture we live in. So, how will Donald Trump behave when the 14th of December eclipse strikes with its connection being exact to within 1 degree of his unstable natal moon Ketu, moon south node in his birth chart? Well, I feel that if he is voted in as president again, he will go overboard with the supreme power mandate. He'll feel he has little to lose. But if he loses this election, well, then he'll challenge the result, and there could well be circumstances of challenge, because of the lingering residue of coronavirus, affecting postal voting and all that sort of thing. And of course there is the possibility that the election could be postponed, and this will create a situation where he could be and will be very divisive and preposterous, and he'll no doubt raise the Bible again in his hand. So I've decided to make this video and blog now. Indeed, I thought about it for 3 weeks before making it, to be sure of my motives. And they are, first of all, to alert people to the facts of the eclipse chart, to how it relates to Donald Trump's chart and how it relates to the United States chart, and how it fits into all the other very difficult energies of 2020 that I list in this video and blog. And the whole point is to ask you to ask yourself key questions and act on the answers you come to. Where do you stand on all this? How will you prepare? How are you really managing your mind at this time? How are you really managing your life at this time? So these are very big things to take stock of, and indeed these have been key questions during the coronavirus lockdown, and they become at least as key as we return into bigger connection with the societies we live in as lockdown is relaxed. Now, I have 7 reasons for making this prediction about Donald Trump, about the eclipse, the effect on his mind and the effect on the United States. So, these are listed in detail in the attached blog post, the address of which is down below. But the first is that the new moon eclipse of the 14th of December is exactly conjunct Donald Trump's natal moon. To have an eclipse on top of your moon has a big effect. And when, in his case, your moon is conjunct Ketu, conjunct the south node of the moon, well, the very least you would have is explosions and hissy fits. And I've known this for decades I've seen it happen. People with moon K2 at the time of ordinary full moons, when they're happening in the heavens, and particularly when they're happening on top of their natal moon, have these hissy fits and explosions. And usually they're pointless and usually destructive on their family and friends and in their work and so forth. And the other point to make when we're talking about reason one for making this prediction is that, of course, as you will see from Donald Trump's birth chart on my December webpage, his birth chart is Kalsarpa Yoga. Kalsarpa Yoga at heart, and this is the truth, is a preposterous and divisive energy where all the Vedic planets are to one side of the chart, to one side of the nodal axis. And this means that the little child grew up where there was some sort of divisiveness in the infant setting. Disagreement between the parents, or cultural clash, or very different cultures, all sorts of things like that. And it does make the individual somewhat sensationalist, preposterous and divisive. It can bring big talents as well. And of course, in a spiritual individual, like any problems can be fuel for our spiritual growth. But that has not happened to Donald Trump. And even when it does happen, you can still see the sensationalist energy of Kalsarpa Yoga compulsively coming out in people often. But the point is, it's in Donald Trump's birth chart, and his moon K2 is the hinge of the two halves, the occupied half and the unoccupied half, and it's in the heavens at the moment. It's in the heavens at the time of the eclipse, has been a lot in 2019 and this year 2020. And by the way, it's just absolute rubbish when people say, oh, the moon has gone into a vacant half of the chart, there's no longer Kalsarpa Yoga. That's absolute nonsense. The moon is alone and unsupported. It is Kimadruma Yoga. And it makes the situation no better to have your moon the other side. And say Mars is a little bit onto the other side, or Mercury is the other side, that doesn't make it better. Mars will make it more aggressive and violent. Mercury will make, communications and mentalism more preposterous. So let's be authentic about this. So this is my first reason for saying why the eclipse of the 14th of December will have a horrific effect on Donald Trump's mental stability. Now, the second one is very important. The eclipses of June the 21st, 2020 and December the 14th, 2020 are in the exact same position and date as in the year of 9/11 in 2001. And, some people are saying, oh yes, but in 2001, Rahu was like a little bit the other side of the eclipse and entered into it. Well, I don't think it'll be much different because Rahu is conjunct this eclipse. Again, let's get real rather than formulaic. The third big reason underlying the social rioting and unrest and revolution and rightful protest in the United States is that Rahu, the north node of the moon, entered a Mars-ruled Nakshatra. So on the 20th of May, Rahu left Ardra Nakshatra and entered Mrigashira Nakshatra. Now the Nakshatras are the supremely powerful declarative description of our emotional consciousness and awareness, and they declare that warts and all. And of course we have to benefit from the clarity of the declaration, minimize the bad bits and maximize the positive facets of the nakshatra where we have planets. And the whole power of the Nakshatras is that they channel the energy of each star within them. And basically the Vedic seers and also the astrologers of ancient Persia and Babylon were so powerful, they could channel the energy of a particular degree in the zodiac and of a particular star. And some stars are sort of record awful, like Shayat, for example, and others are very beneficial. And all this is well logged. And I actually teach a Nakshatras course where you can get deep insight into your life. And then part 2 of the course is using nakshatra techniques to state relationship truths, to declare a relationship, to make a prediction, etc. And so it's very powerful and effective that Rahu, the north node of the moon, entered a Mars-ruled nakshatra on the 20th of March. And Rahu will stay in the Mars-ruled nakshatra until the 26th of January 2021. I felt the Mars energies raise on the 20th of March and felt it strongly on the 4 or 5 days following until I sort of got used to it. And indeed, I seem to remember I read about, riots and so forth bursting out in the United States. Rahu North Node's transit through Ardra was the signature for coronavirus. That has now ended. Ardra is a fearsome energy. But the residue of the coronavirus remains to be dealt with, and the North Node is now in Mars-ruled Nakshatra. Now remember, the North Node's energy is preposterous and driven, ambitious and surrounded by darkness. It is, in our birth chart, the direction of our incarnational life purpose, but unless we purify it, we don't arrive at our destination for this life.